so happy we alive.
We should get the government off our backs. Well, we civil libertarians, of course, think we should also get the government out of our living rooms and out of our bedrooms and out of our decisions about how we raise our own children. I'm fond of saying that the ACLU is a pro-family organization. We just don't think that the traditional American family includes Big Brother as a member. And it's certainly not welcome in the non-traditional families whose freedoms we also defend. So, you see, reforming marijuana laws is a vital element of the larger civil libertarian agenda. Correspondingly, the current marijuana laws and the war on drugs endanger the whole range of civil liberties. Here I commend to your attention a shocking but accurate piece in the December Harper's Magazine, which was co-authored by Graham Boyd, director of the ACLU's Drug Litigation Project, who will also be speaking at this conference. Graham and his co-author, Jack Hitt, make a devastating point-by-point analysis of the rights that our Constitution guarantees in theory to show how the courts have made drug exceptions to every single one of them. In reality, therefore, these rights no longer exist. And that's true not only for those who are convicted of violating drug laws or suspected of violating these laws. That would be bad enough. Worse yet, though, the government's obsessive pursuit of this inherently unwinnable and unjustifiable war. In that pursuit, all of us have lost fundamental rights, even if we aren't even suspected of using any illegal substances. As with all wars, the casualties include innocent civilians, and as is always the case with any war and any crimes, here too the victims are disproportionately poor people and members of racial minorities. Consider just a few shocking statistics on that last point. African Americans constitute 13% of the country's population and 13% of its drug users. In other words, as every government study confirms, African Americans use drugs in precisely the same proportion as other members of other racial groups. Yet when we turn from those who use drugs, the 13%, to those who are arrested for doing so, the African American representation suddenly jumps to 37%. Worse yet, when we consider those convicted for drug use, the African American representation climbs still further to 55%. And when we look at the drug users who are sentenced to prison, the African American contingent soars all the way up to 74%. Graham Boyd's and Jack Hitt's hard-hitting analysis, so to speak, is aptly summed up by the title of their piece. This is your Bill of Rights on Drugs. The subtitle is How We the People Became the Enemy. As I said, one of the authors of that powerful piece, ACLU attorney Graham Boyd, is fighting full-time to restore the rights that the drug war has destroyed. I'm delighted that the ACLU's Drug Policy Litigation Project recently has been doubled to include another full-time lawyer, and they have been making headway on many major fronts, ranging from successful challenges to government efforts to stifle medical marijuana initiatives, including right here in D.C., where, as you know, the ACLU had to go to court to even get the results of the ballot initiative released, to victories against mass or random drug testing programs, including those aimed at welfare recipients and at students participating in academic activities. Here I want to take a little detour. I was in the Supreme Court yesterday, so I was thinking of a few years ago when I was there to watch the ACLU argument in the case called Vernonia versus Acton School District. As you know, that led to a ruling in which the court upheld the use of mass, suspicionless, random drug testing of athletes in a particular high school, and Graham and others are fighting a very valiant battle to try to at least exert some damage control, not allow that terrible precedent, which again the court made a big mistake, to other contexts. But I was recalling the oral argument before the court in that case Again, we had a wonderful ACLU lawyer who had handled it from the beginning in this small town in Oregon where the case began. He was quite young, recently graduated from law school, had never argued before the Supreme Court before. And I went up to introduce myself to him beforehand, and I know he was really quite nervous, as which of us wouldn't be in those circumstances. And Justice Breyer, who was then fairly new to the court, was interrogating our young lawyer, trying to understand. I mean, this is the challenge we face, folks. He was saying, Justice Breyer, I really don't understand what the privacy interest is that you're complaining of here, counsel. After all, boys will play sports and they're undressing in front of each other in locker rooms all the time. And, as far as urinating in a bottle, well, boys urinate and boys and men urinate every day in urinals in front of each other, don't they? And that was a question to our lawyer, and you sort of see him mentally waiting and thinking, well, it sounds right. And when Breyer said, you do have to concede that they urinate in front of each other, and he said, okay, yeah, I guess I will have to concede that. And then Breyer said, well, in fact, everybody urinates, don't they? And again, a little pause, and the lawyer says, yes, Your Honor, I do recognize that. Another pause. In fact, Your Honor, I want to do so right now myself. We didn't win that case, but again, it was not. I was talking about our recent successes on the litigation front, and that's a perfect segue to my final topic, constructive strategies for advancing our law reform goals. I think it's important to close on this kind of positive note. That great philosopher Woody Allen was once coming to the end of his speech, and he said to his audience, I really want to end with something positive, but I can't think of anything positive to say. Would you settle for 2 negatives? Well, we don't have to do that. As Dan recounted, we have made enormous strides recently, not only the litigation victories that I've recounted, but also the legislative and voter initiative victories. These successes should inspire us to renew our efforts with redoubled energy. The first and foremost strategy, and here I'm really echoing Keith's theme, the foundation of all other strategies is public education, public information, public awareness. If people do not understand their rights, they won't demand that government officials pass laws protective of those rights, and they will not elect judges or officials who appoint judges who are committed to protecting those rights. Obviously, the government drug warriors understand this all too well, which is why they have made the effort to co-opt the media, as we've seen. A former Harvard law professor, Zechariah Chaffee, made this point specifically about the First Amendment. He said, in the long run, we the people will have as much freedom of speech as we want. But that's also true for every other right, not only freedom of speech. Moreover, it is especially true for privacy rights because of the legal concept of what the courts call reasonable expectations of privacy. The courts have set that as the benchmark for determining which privacy rights should have constitutional protection. In other words, no matter how strongly a particular individual wants to maintain privacy in a particular area, according to the courts, we have no constitutional protection unless it's an area that society views as private, and hence where we can reasonably expect that the privacy will in fact be respected. This is a terrible, dangerous doctrine, but unfortunately I think it's here to stay for the foreseeable future. What it does is lead to a downward ratcheting, a vicious cycle. Ironically, the more our privacy is restricted as a matter of fact, the more it may be restricted as a matter of law. So we have to turn this around. If the public does not demand privacy or expect privacy in particular contexts, then the public is not going to have such privacy. Those of us who are privacy buffs have to ratchet up public concern and so-called reasonable societal expectations. That